Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Sherman. Today, guys, I got a recap of the Avenger tank build. Now, I'm not going to be anymore calling builds tanks, healers, damage dealers. I'm just calling them builds. I want people to understand that. These are just builds. You can choose how you want to play them. A lot of them are just made to be really fun builds. They are non-meta builds. They are meant to be overall game fun builds. So, let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at the Avenger. So, the Avenger is a Wood Elf Templar. Really interesting build because it is a two-handed tank primarily, but it can also be played as a damage dealer, which is also really good. It also plays really good group support and healing, and so it kind of has this really unique mix of playstyles. Even though it's a heavy armor, stamina mostly build, it can play the other necessary roles in different situations. So, starting with our stats, we have 18k magicka, 28k health, 32k stamina. We do have a 895 mag recovery, 742 health recovery, 881 stamina recovery, and this is just because of the way the build works in general. You get this really widespread recovery, and remember, this is PvE setup. This is not for PvP, but it does work in PvP really well as well. Moving on, we have 2293 weapon damage, 47% weapon critical, 1571 spell damage, 28% spell critical, 19k spell resistance, 19k physical resistance, and 1350 critical resist. Now, this is the flat baseline critical resist that they've added to our characters with Greymoor, so you don't have to put a bunch of stuff into critical resist, and they also changed the traits for crit resist. So you can do CP or you can do traits on your gear. It really depends on how you want to do it, but I really like that they've done that. We are using the Thief Mundus Stone. This is to increase our weapon critical and spell critical. This helps with the way this build tanks, very much so. We do have Major Savagery at all times because we have it on both bars. We have Evil Hunter. We also have Tri-Stat Food. This gives you max health, magic, and stamina by 4,000, and it really helps in the long run. So let's go ahead and jump now to our gear. And you're going to see I have a set of gear in my inventory, and I have a set of gear equipped. Now, the set of gear, stuff I have in my inventory is stuff I haven't broken down yet to recycle back into crafting materials, and that's what I'll do with this. But I do want to show you that you can use other sets. You're not restricted to the way this is set up. The reason this is set up the way it is so that you get different functionality in a group environment, whether you're playing damage dealer or you're playing tank. So, starting with our food, of course, we are using Tri-Stat Food, and yes, you guys are going to see what I carry on my inventory on live. So we have the Crown Tripods. These are really good for getting all three resources back. This is one of the reasons why we don't use the like stamina-based drinks, is because we tank mostly, so having all three resources returned is primarily what you're going to need most of the time, and that's the other reason why we use Evil Hunter, is so we don't have to focus on using those potions. So next up, we do have, again, Tri-Stat Food, really good, 4,462 health, 4,105 magic and stamina, added to our overall pool. So this really boosts our characters' max stamina, max health, and max magicka. And it really allows us to diversify our build and play style with it. So moving on now to our monster set. We are running Silatrix. Now, this build I run infused. I would normally suggest running the Invigorating on the helm and the legs, because that's going to give you more recovery. It's going to give you 22 more recovery, but that also gets boosted by different percentage values that you have from different things. So I just like having a good amount of stats too. So I use infused on the chest, or the helm, and the legs. So if you look here, we have infused stats. But let's go ahead and talk about Silatrix. Silatrix, one piece adds max stamina. Really good for maximizing that stamina pool, but the two piece is where this really shines. When you deal damage, you create an earthquake under the enemy that erupts after 1.5 seconds, dealing X amount of damage to all enemies within 4 meters and stunning them for 3 seconds. This effect can occur every 6 seconds. So you have like a 3-second window basically where this isn't firing off, where it's not stunning anyone. And on top of that, you're dealing 10k damage and then stunning these enemies. It's a really powerful set for crowd control and damage. So it works in either way, as a damage dealer or as a tank. It gives you that nice trade-off. The next set we run is called Night Mother's Gaze. Now, a lot of people are going to ask, why do you use Night Mother's Gaze? Excuse me. I don't mean to cough so much. 2-piece, 3-piece, and 4-piece. So the 2-piece and the 4-piece add weapon critical. You need a decent weapon critical for this build to work efficiently. Because one, this set plays off of critical damage. Anytime you deal critical damage, you apply Major Fracture, and this is the 5-piece, for 6 seconds to the enemy, which reduces their physical resistance by 5,280. You can keep this up 100% with the crit rate you have. So it helps in keeping that Major Fracture applied, whether you're tanking or you're not tanking. The nice thing about this build is you're using it two-handed, so you have a lot of cleave damage. So you can hit multiple targets, and every time you hit those multiple targets, anytime you crit them, you're applying Fracture. So it increases stamina DPS with this setup. And we are using this on the body, so the chest, the belt, the boot, the gloves, and the weapons. Now, you would normally want to go all body pieces here, and then all jewelry and weapons of another set. And that's the other set we're using, which is Plague Doctors. Now, Plague Doctors is another really good set for what it does. It adds 2-piece, 3-piece, max health, 4-piece, 4% healing taken, 5-piece. Adds 3,000 more health. This is a health boosting set. This makes it really easy to build for high health, whether you're playing DPS or you're playing a tank. So this allows me to maximize my health pool and maximize my crit stuff. So it works out overall in the long run. Alright, now we're going to talk about traits and enchants. So starting again with the helm and the legs, infused traits. This is going to increase the armor enhancement, enchantment effects by 20%. As you can see, it takes up to 520, 572 health, magicka, stamina. And then on the, and then Tri-Stat enchants. Now on the chest, we're going to use Tri-Stat as well, but we're also going to be using Reinforced because we want to maximize our resistance value. So this will increase our armor's resistance value by 16% over its base. So it actually goes up to 3,215 in gold. In other, qualities, it varies, but 3,215 is a lot of armor resistance for one piece of armor. On the smaller pieces, and this is something that I made the decision to do a while ago, and that's because I became more experienced with the build. Normally I would still be running infused on the smaller pieces as well, but I've changed up this from infused to divines. And this because I can take advantage of the Mundus Stone Enhance, which is weapon critical. That's why we have a 47% weapon critical on the front bar. So we are using divines and max stamina enchants on all the smaller pieces. This is a good way to maximize your power of your character overall. So it gives you a really good balance of stamina, magicka, health, with using Tri-Stat food to where you can viably use stamina and magicka abilities effectively. But on top of that, you have this recovery rate that plays into it as well, and it works out really well. Alright, moving on now to the jewelry. We are running 2 Plague Doctor rings, Tri-Rune, and on the smaller, the boots and the legs is where I have Plague Doctors as well. So on the smaller pieces, we are running, the jewelry, 2 Tri-Rune rings with weapon damage. This is optional. If you need more defenses, you need more this or that, you can put into here if you need to. But once you get to a point where you're comfortable with the build and you know how it works, you can switch to the weapon damage, and it makes it more effective with its shields, because you do a lot of shield stacking when tanking, and even in solo play. When you're playing in it as DPS, you swap out a lot of abilities. You still have a shield, you only have one, but you're dropping a bunch of other stuff to increase your DPS potential. So you really change how this build plays from maximizing survivability to maximizing DPS. So it's a really interesting one. Next up, we have our third piece, our necklace, which is infused with magic recovery. This gives us that good balance again between mag recovery and stamina recovery. We also get a little bit of health recovery because of wearing the heavy armor and stuff. But now comes the next thing, the weapons, and that is the two-handed sword and the bow. Both of these are infused. The reason I infuse them is because I want the maximum enchantment effect. And I want that enchantment effect going off all the time. So not only do we put a major breach and major fracture on them, or major fracture on them, which reduces physical resistance, we also put the Crusher enchant, which reduces the target's physical and spell resistance by 2108. So we actually reduce the physical resistance by 7,000. So it's really powerful how this works. The next thing is the bow, and it's infused with a weapon damage enchant. Now this does increase both weapon and spell damage. Now this is also important for certain abilities and certain ways you might play the build. Having that tool there that gives you that higher spell damage when you need it for different playstyles also helps. But it's primarily there for the weapon damage to increase the capabilities of the build. Alright, moving on to the skills. Again, not going to talk about the skills we have unlocked. We're going to be talking about what we have on the bar primarily. Now, this is how I play the build 90 to 100% of the time. And I say 90 to 100 because 90 to 100% of the time I'm solo playing. Unless I'm with a group doing a dungeon, or I'm doing a trial, or I'm doing a world boss, or and if I'm tanking or if I'm DPSing, it really comes down to a lot of different things. When I solo play, this is how the build is set up. So, starting with the first ability we have on our bar, we have Brawler. This is a really great AoE damage ability. It hits multiple targets, does a lot of damage, and it gives you a shield for 4,768 for 6 seconds. And that shield strength increases for each enemy hit by 50%, up to 300%. This thing can go up to 20k. It's that powerful. The next one is our high damage output build, which is our ability Biting Jabs. Now this does X amount of damage up front, X amount of damage over time to the enemies because it is a channel ability. It is not like a real dot. It is a channel ability that does damage over time. So it does damage up front and damage over time. It also reduces enemy movement speed by 40%, which really plays well with Cellatrix. And then on top of that, it also gives you Major Savagery, increasing your weapon critical by 2191. Now this is where you can get away with not having potions that give you that 2191 for 8 seconds, the Major Savagery. But you still need that Major Savagery at all times because you need it on both front bar and back bar. So the next ability we have is Blazing Shield. This is our primary tanking shield. This is our primary mitigation shield. It absorbs 10,032 damage for 6 seconds, and this portion of the ability scales off your max health. So the higher max health you have, the stronger the shield. And then every nearby enemy increases the shield strength by 4% when the shield is activated. While the shield, or when the shield expires, it explodes outwards, dealing 36% of the damage it absorbed to nearby enemies. Now here's the great thing. If a brawler is up first, then this shield, it actually takes into account both shields on the 36% damage. So if you have 20k and another 10k, so 30k shields, and then boss hits you once and strips you of all your shields, that's 36% of that is going back to all the enemies around you. So it's a really nice shield. Next ability we have is our Rally. Now this is just here for major brutality. It also has a very powerful heal on it when it expires, but it also gives you minor endurance, increasing your recovery, stamina recovery by 10% for 20 seconds, and you heal for X amount when Rally ends. That the first heal is increased by 15% every second, up to a maximum of 15%. So here's how the ability works. When you activate Rally, it will start the heal tick. So the longer the time frame lasts for it, when you activate it again, it will heal you. So every time that you activate it, it heals you for a certain amount, depending on the length of time it lasts. If you let it run the full duration, you're looking at a max heal on your character. Like 15k, almost 20k health. It is very powerful. So it really helps in that solo play. It really helps in that group play. And it really helps the healer not have to focus on you as much, because you can self-sustain yourself better than most people. So, and that's why you can do both DPS and tanking with this build. Alright, next ability we have, again, like I said, Evil Hunter. This gives you that major savagery. It also reduces the cost of your Fighter's Guild abilities by 25% in stamina. And so it does not apply to your next ability you have, which is Flawless Dawnbreaker. Now this is an ultimate. Being a Templar, you get reduced ultimate cost, which is really good. This costs you 118 ultimate. When you use this, it does damage up front, damage over time, and it also increases your weapon damage by 300 for 20 seconds. This is a great way to build up your brawler shield strength and your brawler damage, along with the damage of your biting jabs and everything else. So this is really just here to boost your DPS or your survivability if you need it. Now, the back bar is where you're primarily going to be using the ultimate if you're tanking. If you're doing DPS, this is your primary ultimate. Next ability, or next bar, back bar, our bow bar. So on the bow bar, we have Venom Arrow. This is a really good damage ability. Does damage up front, damage over 10 seconds, and it also has a really great CC effect. If an enemy is casting an ability, they are interrupted, set off balance, and stunned for 3 seconds. Now this works great in both PvE and PvP, because you're going to be hitting people in both areas that are casting. So there's a lot of times you'll be stunning enemies and setting them off balance and all that stuff, and it really gets them set off. Trust me, especially in PvP. In PvE, they're AI, so they don't really complain, but I'm sure you can feel their frustration. Next ability we have is Arrow Barrage. This is a really great ability. Now, it only lasts for 10 seconds. It has a 7-meter radius, but it does damage every point, or every second with a 2-second delay. Now, why is this important that we mention the radius? It's important because the greater the radius, the more enemies being affected by it. That means each enemy that's being hit is applying that buff from that weapon and spell damage. So every time your weapon and spell damage should wear off, it's getting reapplied, and it stays reapplied. So you get this high weapon and spell damage all the time, and then you have Crusher as well being applied all the time to multiple targets along with that major fracture. So it's a really more, hey, I'm here to tear through stuff and deal a lot of damage when you're playing DPS, but when you're playing a tank, you've got this AoE ability that's hitting multiple targets. It's grabbing aggro, because the aggro in this game is built off of damage and off of taunting. So you can also build aggro with this, and it'll pull all the enemies to you, and your tank doesn't have to worry so much because you have the ability to absorb a lot of damage. Not with your damage shields, but with 1 damage shield. Then you have a really powerful heal, you have a really powerful survivability tool, you'll see. Next ability we have is our Ritual of Retribution. This is a great ability. After you cast it, you remove 2 harmful effects from yourself immediately. While in the area, you and your allies are healed for X amount of health, and your enemies take X amount of magic damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. Now, the interesting thing about this ability is this ability plays off your highest offensive stats. Now, the magic damage it deals and the healing it does is based off of magic, you would think. But it's not. It's based off your max stamina, because it scales off your highest offensive stat. So this is with 32,000 max stamina. So that's a really good thing, and it works out really well in the long run. It's also a great synergy for your group. So tanking or healing or DPS, you've got a synergy you can throw out. It works out really well. Next ability we have on our bar is Restoring Focus. Now, Restoring Focus, another really good ability, because it gives you the Major Resolve, which increases physical and spell resistance by 5,280. It allows you to be super tanky. But on top of that, you also recover 240 stamina every second. Now, if you stay within the circle, so if I put this down, if I put this down and I show you now what my resistances look like, they go to 2726. And that's because when you're as long as you're standing in that circle, when you activate it, it increases your physical and spell resistance again by another 50% of the value of 5,280. So you're actually getting more resistances when you stay in the circle. So when you tank, you don't want to move a lot. You want to keep this up as much as possible. So this is really good. It also gives you that stamina, no matter what, every second for the duration of 20 seconds. So you're not only are you getting stamina back from this, you're also getting stamina back from your recovery rate. You're getting stamina back from your heavy attacks. You're getting stamina back fast. So it really allows you to focus on keeping up high brawlers, high other stuff. So stamina cost, also really good. Next up we have Evil Hunter again. This does the same thing I mentioned on the front bar. And then last but not least, this is a really kind of the floater ability. And I use multiple abilities here, but when I am soloing, I do use Rapid Fire. I am working to get this transferred over to Ballista, because Ballista is really great because you place it and you can keep doing. But this is a really powerful damage ability. It does 52,000 damage over 4 seconds. And you can move at full speed and are immune to all disabling effects while channeling this attack. So it is a channel. The Ballista isn't. It's an ability that fires over time. So the other thing I have to explain to you guys is this is actually my character from live on the PTS. The only thing I did with this character on the PTS is adjust some of my gear. That's it. I'll go and unlock all the skills, and that's because I want you to see what I'm still working on. I want you to see that I've been playing this character for 4 years almost, and I still haven't unlocked everything I could possibly use. So Adric Spear, the thing about class abilities and unlocking class abilities, there is a reason why I do unlock as much as I can on the class, on the weapons, on the armor, and guild skills, all that stuff. It gives you more options and more tools for multiple situations. Because as I tell people, you're never always in a group. You're never always in the perfect group. You're never always in the perfect situation. So having tools that allow you a lot of flexibility, a lot of freedom to help, or in this case, play a support character, play a damage dealer, and play a tank is really good, because now you have more flexibility in what your character can do and how they play. So when it comes to unlocking skills, these are the skills I unlock for the class. Empowering Sweeps, it does physical damage, really powerful. Biting Gems, physical damage. Binding Javelin, physical damage. Explosive Charge, AoE damage when you charge enemies. Blazing Spear, great damage ability, but also great CC. Or, not CC, support ability, because you can synergize off it and give resources to your allies. Blazing Shield, great damage. And then the passives are always good with unlocking, because then it gives you access to all those passive abilities no matter what. Dawn's Wraith, again, all passives, and then the abilities I unlocked: Solar Disturbance, Vampire's Bane, Solar Barrage, Power of Light, Eclipse, and Radiant Destruction. And then on Restoring Light side, Remembrance, Breath of Life, Ritual of Retribution, Repentance, Ritual of Rebirth, Repentance, and Ritual of Retribution, and then Restoring Focus. These I use. I actually use Breath of Life a lot, because I play healer sometimes. So, and it's usually when I'm like running normal dungeons or whatever, and we just need a quick healer. I can just throw some skills on and we go. I don't have to change anything else. I don't even have to change weapons. Next up, two-handed, Onslaught, Wrecking Blow, Stampede, Brawler, Executioner, Strike, and Rally. Now, Reverse Slice is what I usually use, but I wanted to get Executioner, Strike worked on leveling, so that's why that's there. On bow, of course, Rapid Fire, Focused Aim, Arrow Barrage, Draining Shot, Bombard, and Venom Arrow are what I use. I also unlock all the passives to the weapons because you want those. And then when it comes to armor, light armor, I unlock the top 3 because I am wearing one piece of light armor. This is a 5-1-1 build. And if you guys are wondering how I have that set up, I run the head and the belt light and medium. So light belt, medium helm normally, and then everything else heavy. But unfortunately I have this in medium and this in heavy, so I have to go with what I have. So unfortunately that's the flaw in this character. I don't have the best monster set yet. Alright, medium armor. Top 2, bottom 1, and then on heavy armor you're going to want to take all of them because you are using heavy armor as your primary armor. World Skills, Soul Magic. I haven't unlocked these all the way yet, but I would normally have Soul Strike and Soul Trap unlocked and morphed, and then of course the passives. Now, I don't use any of the Vampire, Werewolf, or anything else with this. I did have Ledgerman stuff unlocked at one time, mainly Locksmith and Trafficker, but I don't use those anymore with this character because this character is no longer like my all-around character. I use them for farming, mostly in tanking. Next up, Fighters Guild. All Fighters Guild abilities and passives. I have Flawless Dawnbreaker, Silver Leash, Ring of Preservation, Evil Hunter, and Trap Beast. Mages Guild, and I do have all the passives. Mages Guild, I have all the passives as well, and I have all the skills unlocked. Meteor, Mage Light, Entropy, Fire Rune, and Equilibrium. I haven't worked on these at all, primarily because I don't use Magicka too often, and when I do, I don't need higher spell crit or anything because I can do so well without it. Psijic Order, I don't have all the abilities unlocked because I'm still trying to get enough skill points so I can unlock all of them, and along with the passives, which I did unlock all the passives, I just haven't unlocked all the abilities. Now, I do use certain abilities from here, as you can see, to View Weapon and Meditate, but I do have morphs of those that I do use when I need them. Right now I don't need them, so... And then also here I have the passives here, which are very important. You're going to want to unlock these passives because they do amazing things for you when you have them maxed out. So, Blood Altar, Trapping Webs, Inner Beast, I use this for tanking. Bone Shield, Spiked Bone Shield, I might use for tanking, and then Necrotic Orb. Alliance Ward. Assault Skills, Aggressive Horror, I primarily use this when I'm tanking. Echoing Vigor, I use this sometimes when I'm tanking. Razor Caltrops, I don't use anymore because I use Night Mother's Gaze. And then Support Skills, Reviving Barrier, and Purge. And then, of course, I also unlock Magic Aid. This shows you how often I use Purge when I tanked in the game, compared to my own class ability of this, which does 2 negative effects. Purge removes 3 negative effects, but it costs me 7,000 Magicka. So I use this a lot more. And then anyone who activates the synergy for this also removes all harmful effects. So it's got a purge on that as well. So it's a really nice ability. Racials, I am a Wood Elf, so I have all Wood Elf passives unlocked. They are very helpful, regardless of what many people might say. They'll say Wood Elves can't tank, they're better DPS. They can tank. They're great at it, especially if you're stamina based, because you get this max stamina pool, and you get poison resist and immunity, and then you get stamina recovery, and then of course you get the stealth stuff, which you don't really need to worry about. But this other one, increased movement speed by 10% and physical and spell resistance by 1500 after or for 6 seconds after you dodge roll. I don't know about you guys, but this is me a lot of the times when I'm tanking. So I actually get that extra resistance. So I go to almost 30k. It's really powerful. But that's it for the skills, guys. Now we're going to take a look at the CP, starting with the red tree. So in the red tree, we have 56 in Ironclad. This reduces damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. We have 4 into Spell Shield. Now, there's a reason why we have 4 into Spell Shield, because this will give us enough resistances from our other resistance thing we have in the CP to counter the amount of resistance we have in Magicka, or spell resistance and physical resistance. Moving on, we have 31 into Thick Skin. This reduces incoming damage from direct damage attacks by 13%. We have 43 into Hardy. This reduces incoming damage from physical poison disease damage by 10%. We have 43 into Elemental Expert. This reduces Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 10%. And then moving on over here, we have 40 into Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. Now, Brawler and Blazing Shield do take advantage of this, so it makes very powerful shields. Next, we have 19 into Quick Recovery, increasing our healing received by another 5%, and then we have 34 into Heavy Armor Focus. This increases your physical resistance by 2980. Now, there's a reason why we do this. See, the Templar has a passive in the Aedric Spear line called Balanced Warrior. Balanced Warrior increases your spell resistance by 2640 and your weapon damage by 6%. That 2640 applies to anything you're wearing: heavy armor, medium armor, light armor. So adjusting the values so you put more into physical resistance and less into spell resistance gives you that greater resistance pool. And that is it for the red tree. Moving on to the green tree, we have 56 in the Warlord. This reduces the cost to break free by 20%. You're going to notice I don't have anything in Sprinter, and that's because I've become so accustomed to playing without it, I don't need it anymore. I do have 16 in a Bashing Focus. I am a tank, not primarily, but most of the time I bash a lot. So I like to have that ability to interrupt enemies, and having that reduced cost really helps, saves resources. Moving on. 43 into Mooncalf. This increases stam recovery by 10%. 43 into Arcanist increases mag recovery by 10%. And 43 into Tenacity, increasing mag stamina of your fully charged heavy attacks. Now, the interesting thing here is somebody's going to say, why do you have it set up this way? This works for me. Okay? Not everyone's going to have this same setup. Moving on. 13 into Tumbling reduces the cost of your dodge roll by 6%. And 56 into Shadow Ward, reducing your block cost by 20%. Normally I would have 40 and 40. But because of the way I play the build, and I've become so accustomed and experienced with it, I don't need that anymore. I don't need the 40-40. I block a lot. Not all the time, but I do block a lot of attacks that I know I need to block, even with shields up. Because I take less damage. So, moving on to the blue tree, we have 43 into Bless. This increases your healing done by 10%. We do have 40 into Elfborn. Now this increases your critical damage and critical healing with magic abilities by 16%. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. Again, this is my preference. Moving on over here, we have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases your light and heavy attack damage with two-handed and bow by 10%. We also have 40 into Mastered Arms. This increases your damage done with direct damage attacks by 16%. Now remember, like I said, I play this build not only with physical damage, or as a tank and a damage dealer, but also as a healer sometimes. So that's why I have this weird CP setup for me. Moving on, 43 into Mighty. This increases physical poison disease damage by 10%. 40 into Precise Strikes, increasing critical damage and critical healing with stamina abilities by 16%. And then 40 into Thaumaturge. This increases your damage done with damage over time effects by 16%. That's how I can get away with having 40 points over here in Elfborn, which gives me that 16% as well, is I put points in these different areas that give me enough percentage bonuses to get by. And then I have 8 into Piercing. This helps me increase my damage potential because I can go to 8,000 penetration. Alright, so now that I've shown you guys that, let's go ahead and see what this build looks like in play, shall we? So I told you guys here recently I was going to show you what I play on live. This is what I play on live. This is my main character that I play all the time, most of the time. I won't say all the time, but most of the time. Oops, wrong Billy. And I do solo with this build just as it is because I've become so experienced with it. I know how the build plays really well. Unlike a lot of people, like you'll hear a lot of people say, well, I know how my build works, but they don't understand how it plays, like how effective it can be until you play it for a long period of time and you get accustomed to playing it. And you notice I do a lot of heavy attacking. I don't do a lot of light attacks unless I'm fighting like a large group of enemies. When I'm fighting a single target, I switch to heavy attacks so I can keep my resources coming in. Alright, here we go. And now I'm only going to get him down to about 70%. Or not 70%, but like 70-something percent. And then I'm going to stop because I don't want him to disappear and teleport and go into his thing. And just to show you guys how much damage this thing can absorb. And this is on normal mode. Now in Veteran, you wouldn't want to stay in these circles. It's a bad idea. Rally. Boom. Full health. Almost. And that's my first potion I've used. Because I usually do a lot of heavy attacks with my rotation. And it's not really a rotation, it's just how you get accustomed to playing a build a certain way. It becomes second nature. So you just get used to the way the build plays, and you just do as you think it needs to be done. Now he's going to disappear because I screwed up. I'm going to go ahead and let him kill me. Because if I don't, he'll disappear. So. He killed me. Oh no, the world's gonna end. So, that's pretty much how my build works. And like I said, the more experienced you become with a build, the more proficient you become, the more knowledge you gain from it, from using it, and how it works in different situations. That's why you can use so many different tools, and you can play so many different ways, because you never know what you're going to need at different times. You got a group of people, you want to go run some dungeons, but you don't have your normal healer on. Who's going to heal? Well, I can heal. We're just going to run some normal dungeons and do our dailies. Boom, done. We're going to go run a normal trial. Boom, done. Yes, I can heal normal trials. I'm not going to say I do a good job. I don't heal for them as the main. I'm the other healer. And I do a great job because I can help keep the group alive while we're doing the trial. And it works out really well, but at the same time, it can be really challenging, and I think that's something else that makes it exciting to play and makes it fun. So, but that is pretty much it for this build, guys. That is the Avenger. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.